Welcome to the Glitter Boom Girls podcast. I'm Robbie Ann McPherson on the East Coast.
Amy Asbury on the West Coast.
So, guys, you know, we always just get right into it, okay? We dispense with all the introductory stuff. Today we are discussing a legend of cinema. We are discussing a man who left an absolutely indelible imprint. I don't know, pick a metaphor. We're talking about John Hughes today. And he is the Generation X, like, Pied Piper guy who kind of led us all as teenagers into an introspective world, I think. I don't know. You know what, Aim? I think that might have been the worst introduction I ever gave. But
no, I actually really liked it. You got to keep that. I was like, she's right. Yes. No, it's true. And I'll tell you why. Because the fact that it was introspective was major, and I haven't seen anything like that since.
Right.
And that is the main thing about it. It was a comedy. These shows were sort of comedic, but they were also really, really introspective. And there was kind of a little magic realism in them. Like, some things were like, wait, that could have never happened, but you just kept going with it. And that's how you feel as a teenager.
Yeah.
He showed the feelings of their brain, you know, the misery and the like, oh God, like you could feel it's hot and miserable on the bus. He just did a great job writing this material.
I agree.
Of teenagers. So I think you were spot on.
Even though I was rambling. Okay. No, I always looked at his movies, and we're talking the teen movies in this second, but he has a whole world of cinema. So, but as far as the teen movies went, right, I always thought that they presented teenage life sort of as it was, as opposed to how it should be, or, you know, some fake idea of something. Like when I saw The Breakfast Club, for example, I heard so much in that movie of my own feelings, like coming out in the script on screen, coming out of these actors' mouths. And I was like, oh my God, this isn't someone telling me that I'm doing it wrong, right? Like, this is somebody.
So well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
This is someone that is reflecting how I really feel. And the acting was great, and the script was great. And I read something somewhere that John Hughes had once said that he never likes to end a movie on a down note. He always wants to end a movie on a positive note, which I think is another reason why his movies resonated so much with teens, because in the end, you always felt like there was hope, and you always felt like, okay, my family life might be messed up, or I might not be doing high school well, or I may be this, that, and the other thing, but there's hope, you know? So I want to ask you, though, Aim, so can you give, like, the John Hughes character, any one of the movies, whether he wrote it, directed it, whatever, some movie that he touched, tell me which character you related most to, or that you thought represented most who you were when you were. I know you had several lifetimes as a teenager, but even if it's a couple.
That's the thing. I've been different characters at different times. And I think that, you know, I look at 16 Candles, the character that Molly Ringwald played in 16 Candles, as the initial feeling I felt for a couple of the first years of being a teenager. Just kind of disgusted with everything. Just like, oh, God. You know, it's like, oh.
Like one big eye roll.
Just disgusted. Yeah. And she's just like walking through the school with like these dorks, and like there's this hot guy over there. And I just was like, wow. And just kind of being embarrassed of her bust. And her grandparents were all, you know, it's kind of neat about the grandparents' sidebar. You know how there was two sets?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the one set with the grandmother that had the white bouffant and then the cigarette with the long ash on it.
Right. I'll just get the donuts.
Yeah, those two were actually actors in the Twilight Zone.
Oh, no
back
kidding.
In the day, so they played a little Twilight Zone music when they hit the screen. And I never knew that was a little Easter egg.
Oh, I love that. Oh my
Isn't that
gosh.
cute?
Yeah, and we're going to cover a lot of Easter eggs in John Hughes
Oh, we
movies
have
too.
more.
Yeah, yeah, because
But yeah, but definitely that Molly Ringwald's character, what was her name in 16 Candles?
Samantha.
Samantha Baker. And I just loved it. And I loved that she had this talk with her father. And I just was like, this is just, it's just everything. There's good about it. There's bad about it. And then I would say a little bit later on, I really felt that Ali Sheedy character, like, I'm just going to try to act weird. And, and then I felt that even the Brian in Breakfast Club, Anthony Michael Hall, where he kind of just wanted to die. I felt a lot of those characters.
Yeah.
What about you?
I have the same feeling. It's a mishmash of a bunch of them from different points in my life. I think in general, as an early teen, well, yeah, I don't know. As a teenager, I think I was probably most like the Ali Sheedy character in Breakfast
Really?
Club. Yeah, just a complete misfit. And at
You were
least,
that off the grid?
well, that's how I felt on the inside.
Okay.
And I think on the outside, maybe I was a little more like Samantha in 16 Candles, where I wasn't like the popular girl or anything close to
Sure.
it, but I just kind of went and did my thing. But on the inside, I felt like her character, where
Wow.
where because she talks about being ignored, and
Wow.
when they say when Emilio Estevez, I think he says, "What's the worst thing your parents did to you?" And she says, "They
Yeah.
ignore me." Like that feeling, right, of being not understood, not heard, not seen. That
Yeah.
that was a profound. When I saw that movie, I really resonated with a lot of the things that she said. I definitely did not relate to Claire, Molly Ringwald's
No.
character, at all.
Okay.
And Judd Nelson, smoke up, Johnny. Like his whole
I kind
Bender
of ended up
character.
like that a little bit towards the end. I'm like, well, now I'm this dude. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
just running the gamut on these people.
yeah. We should do like a flow chart. you
And,
know.
and but in my head, I was like, where's that Jake Ryan? Like, that's all I wondered.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
yeah, the characters were, and it's interesting that he wrote females so well.
Right.
John Hughes grew up with three sisters. And apparently in his neighborhood when he grew up, and of course, all of these settings are kind of, am I right? They're all kind of in Chicago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're all in
It's all like
Chicago
these
because,
Midwestern, like in Pretty in Pink, that was shot in L.A. But
yeah,
I
they were
don't.
all shot. Well, not all of them. I know that he kind of, I know he was, John Hughes was born in Michigan, Lansing, Michigan, but I believe he grew up in Chicago. Let's see. All right, he spent the first 12 years of his life in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. Okay, so he was kind of like a Midwest, like upper Midwestern guy. But anyway, he had a lot of girls in his neighborhood. There was no boys his age, and he had a lot of sisters. And I feel like that helped him to write these parts of females very well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And makes you wonder, like, who he knew that was Claire and who he knew that was Samantha Baker. And although Molly Ringwald was a muse for him, right?
Right.
Like he wrote these roles for her. Excuse me. And as far as like the humor piece of it goes, like to me the humor in 16 Candles really reflected my sense of humor.
Uh-huh.
So when I saw that movie, just the goofy stuff that was going on, like this goofball family, and everything was kind of surreal and goofy. I thought it was, at the time, it was a really funny movie. And
It really was.
if you go back to like Vacation, which he also wrote, some of the humor is a little bit similar. Like Vacation's a little more adult humor and it's a little bit more biting, but it's the same just kind of absurd stuff that I always thought was just hilarious. Like I didn't want the broad comedy all the time. I thought that some of the subtler sight gags and stuff, like the thing that I think of in 16 Candles when they're in the church and the little old lady is walking up the aisle and her shoes are squeaking. Like that has no, there's no, that's not part of the story. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just, and it's just this weird moment in the movie, but it's hilarious.
It's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know why it's funny, but it's funny.
It really is, and it is said that his movies were kind of the antithesis of all like the Porky's and Revenge of the Nerds. You know, It was very different from that, and people really, really responded to that. And he did have a little bit of a biting sense of humor because he used to write essays and stories for National Lampoon, which was kind of like a humor magazine.
Yeah, yeah. Those are the guys that birthed Animal House.
Right. So he actually wrote for them, and then he went on to do. I think before that he was in like an ad agency or something, but he could write real funny things. And one of his little essays turned into Vacation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
it was like he was writing about his family, right? And which you know what that brings up. So let's get into some of the movies. Okay, so he writes this essay, and that becomes Vacation, and he also wrote She's Having a Baby, which was kind of autobiographical. That was with Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth
McGovern, I think.
McGovern, thank you.
But let's back it up before that, if I may.
Oh yeah.
Okay, he drops out of U of A, which is University of Arizona. He starts selling jokes to comedians. Before all this happened, he was selling jokes to Rodney Dangerfield and Joan Rivers, and he used those jokes to get an entry-level job at an ad copywriter in Chicago in like 1970. Okay, and then later he gets a job at a better ad agency, and he actually created, you know, on the corn pops, like that big old, you know, the cereal.
Yeah, yeah.
The Big Yellow or something his name was. It was like that cowboy.
Oh,
he created that guy, and he also created
corn pop cowboy.
Yeah, he created. There was a credit card shaving test, like if you had stubble. It was some ad where they like, you know.
I remember those ads. Yeah, you would go
that.
On your face. And
he created that.
Oh, that's
He
funny.
also worked on Virginia Slims. So anyway, Virginia Slims was part of Philip Morris in New York City. So he'd go out there to visit their offices, and National Lampoon magazine was right by there. So he started contributing to National Lampoon.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, wait a second, you are good. And he wrote this little story called Vacation 58.
Yeah.
And that was the basis for Vacation. So he also wrote a little bit some more adult humor type of thing. And I think he might have done a few ad stories for Playboy. You know, he was a little adult, but and then anyway, so after Vacation, he does a script for Mr. Mom. He gets a 3-picture deal with Universal. So that's a background. And then it picks up to right what you're saying.
Which, by the way, Mr. Mom, I'm not joking. I watched Mr. Mom this morning. Like, I got up real early for some reason. Cool. And I love Mr. Mom. I could probably perform Mr. Mom for you right now because I have seen it. Can't even tell you how many times. And
oh, is that right? I
just think it's one of the funniest movies ever made. The actors in it, Martin Mull, Michael Keaton, Terry Garr, Jeffrey Tambor, like their timing and the whole like you know, just the Gary Marshall of it all, you know, so funny. And
so that was what, 83? I think that came out in what, like 1983.
Super quotable. Yeah, like
is it?
I mean, I still say stuff in my life, you know, like when someone's like, "Come on, okay, we have to go over the list." I'll be like, "No, I don't want to go over the list." Okay, let's go over the list. You know, and it's all stuff
so
like people look at me like, "What are you?" Or
she has Tourette's, yeah.
For those of you who have day jobs, when you come out of a meeting and someone says, "How was it in there?" You go, "Like having your gums scraped," and see if they get it, because that's a total Mr. Mom reference. But yeah, there's like office references, there's family references, there's the supermarket stuff is hilarious. So
And I heard that that was based on his life when his wife went out and got a job and he had to take care of he has two boys.
yeah.
Is
In the
that
movie,
true?
he's got two boys. Well, he's got two boys and a girl in the movie. But
Oh, okay.
yeah. So and when I visited L.A. recently to
Yeah,
see none other than you,
that's right.
my good friend Amy, and well,
Mhm.
also to visit my friend Karen. Shout out Karen.
Right, right.
One of my missions was to go and find the Mr. Mom house, the little yellow Cape Cod that they used in the movie. Because when I
Yeah.
lived in LA, I used to have to drive down this one particular street in the valley to go over the hill to my job. And
Okay.
I used to pass by this one house that looked a lot like the Mr. Mom house, but it wasn't. I knew it wasn't
Okay.
because of the houses around it and stuff. So I would always wonder, where was it? Where was it? And I would try to find it on the internet or whatever. Couldn't find it, couldn't find it. So I
Hmm.
leave LA, years, decade, whatever later. And I finally found it. Somebody tracked down this house. So when I went to LA, I had to go and find it. And you guys, it looks exactly the same
So
still,
cool.
except there's a little addition on the one side. It used to be like just a first floor room and kind of a little add-on, and now it's like
Uh-huh.
a whole full second floor, two-story addition. But the front of the house, the little brick path, the stairs, the picket fence that he
Oh,
paints in the movie during the Rocky montage, like the whole thing. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to sidebar
so you
into
love Mr.
Mr. Mom.
Mom. That's cute.
Love Mr. Mom. And she's having a baby, which also was autobiographical. That one, now in that one, Kevin Bacon plays this guy who works at an ad agency but wants to be a writer,
Oh,
right? And he's kind of absorbed in his own needs, like he gets married and then they get the house in the suburbs and then she's pregnant and and they have the baby. She's having a baby, get it? So it's a really cute movie if you're at that stage in your life, because I just always found it to be a really great movie from a male point of view of how it is to, transition from being a single young guy into kind of an old married guy, sort of seemingly overnight. So that was a really beautiful movie, and it's relevant because so Aim, you talked about the Easter egg of the Twilight Zone, which next time I watch 16 Candles, I have
mm-hmm.
to. Was that Grandpa Fred and his wife?
Yeah, I think it was Grandpa Fred. I don't remember. He was like the one who was always laughing,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's where the
That guy.
yes.
Oh, wait.
She's
No,
like,
the other guy was Fred. The other guy
okay,
was Grandpa Fred. I know you're there. I can hear you breathing. That guy was
yes,
Grandpa
yes,
Fred.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So whenever they used cars in John Hughes movies, John Hughes would put a little Easter egg on the license plate.
I love
And
that.
I know it's super cool. And I didn't know any of this, but until I was kind of digging around. So uh, in National Lampoon's Vacation, oh wait, sorry, wait, I'm skipping ahead of myself here. Okay, I'm going back to okay. So in 16 Candles, one of the grandparents' cars, the license plate says V58. And that is in reference to the Vacation 58 short story that he wrote, that you were talking about that led to the movie Vacation.
Hmm.
And the car driven by Jake Ryan, the Porsche, that has a license plate number of 21850, which was John Hughes' birthday. February 18th, 1950. And then in the Breakfast Club, the vehicle that Anthony Michael Hall got dropped off in, his character Brian, that
Yeah,
license plate says E equals MC squared.
that's
And
so cute.
the automobile belonging to Jefferson, or they call him Jake Briggs, Kevin Bacon's character, and she's having a baby, that has the license plate SHAB. Hello, she's having a baby. And
Oh,
then
cute.
I know. And finally, there are two in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So Ed Rooney, Principal Rooney.
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
remember his car got towed, So that license plate on that car reads 4FBDO, which is for Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh.
And Ferris's mother, she comes home, remember, in the station wagon. Her license plate says VCTN, which is a nod to vacation.
I love that.
Right? Isn't that fun? And I mean, there's a whole, bunch more of like weird little Easter eggs, but I just love that stuff. And he was really big on that kind of, Easter eggy thing. Like Samantha Baker, her last name was Baker. Well, the older sister in the movie,
we've talked about. I feel like we've talked about her a few times.
we have talked about her because I had a run-in in a bathroom.
That's what you said. Yes.
A pleasant run-in, mind you.
Yes, of course.
But she is the daughter of Carol Baker,
right?
Who was the bombshell in The Carpetbaggers. Hello, right? With one of my favorite actors, whose name I totally forgot. But anyway, so when you're watching these movies, you got to look out for this kind of stuff. Like it's kind of fun to catch back behind the scenes stuff. Like in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when they're in the parade and Ferris Bueller is singing "Twist and Shout" by the Beatles.
Right.
They actually had not cleared that song yet, but they shot it anyway. And when they went to clear it, it cost them a fortune because it was a Beatles song, of course. And back in the 80s, it was a little easier to get.
And John Hughes was a giant Beatles fan, by the way. Go on.
Yes,
I guess
exactly. So, but the whole thing was like this nail biter because they, obviously it was a huge shoot. It was a parade. It was thousands of people. Like you can't go back and just reshoot that.
All of those really cool synchronized dances they had on that was so
Shake it
funny.
Up, babe. And he's got the girls with the lederhosen. Twist and shout. Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought those were fun facts. But so okay, Aim.
What's that?
What's your I guess favorite is the best way to put it. If you only had movies that John Hughes wrote, directed, or produced, or somehow touched, and you had to pick two, Desert Island, John Hughes movies, which two would you pick?
Well, I'm going to say 16 Candles. And also, you guys, it's not just because of Samantha Baker. I also love Anthony Michael Hall, and we got to get into that a little bit because there's some really good trivia on him. But I really loved The Breakfast Club. I know I'm not like venturing out. There's so many John Hughes movies. But 1985 is The Breakfast Club. And something I find very interesting about it, and this is something that's interesting with a couple of these other movies, they actually wanted John Cusack and Joan Cusack to play two of those roles in The Breakfast Club.
Really? Which ones?
And well, it looks like John Cusack was supposed to be Bender.
Huh. Okay.
And then Joan was going to be Allison, which is Ali Sheedy. But Universal thought Hughes's other, 16 Candles was more commercial, so that they put that one first. Like they had already filmed it, but they ended up like, let's do 16 Candles first and then the other one. So anyway, they wanted they just like, they were like, no, this doesn't fit anymore. And then they switched it up. And they also, side note, wanted Jennifer Beals to play the lead in Pretty in Pink.
Wow.
And of course,
okay.
Right?
Pretty in Pink.
Play Andy.
Yeah.
Because she has done Flashdance and all that. And, and we've all heard about this. Hughes, some people say he had a crush on Molly Ringwald. Some people say she was his muse. And the story of, he was looking through headshots of actresses and he sees Molly Ringwald from Facts of Life at the time and some plays. Looks at her picture, writes 16 Candles in one weekend.
Wow.
Looking at her picture like, oh, this is it. So she was his muse. And she said, people kind of hint around that he was a little bit not difficult to work with, but maybe a little eccentric.
Okay.
And I think it's very interesting because, he loved Anthony Michael Hall because he played Rusty in Vacation, thought he was really funny.
He was great in
Right?
Vacation.
And so Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald are both 15-year-olds when they were filming 16 Candles. Of course, Jake Ryan's like 23, some model. But anyway, they didn't, I guess, Molly Ringwald and Anthony Michael Hall didn't quite like each other when the movie started. And John Hughes sent them off to a record store. Like, they were all in Chicago. They had nothing to do. They couldn't go out to the bars. He sent them into a record store, and they ended up bonding over liking some of the same music. And one of the
Oh.
bands was called the Rave Ups, which is what Samantha Baker writes on her folder.
Yeah, it's like on her notebook that
Her
she's
notebook.
carrying around.
So they both liked that, and they started bonding. And then they actually went and crashed a couple bar mitzvahs in the hotel they were staying at to film that movie because they couldn't go out to bars. They were bored. So they ended up becoming close, and I thought that was cute. And they actually ended up dating by the time Breakfast Club rolled around.
Farmer
Isn't that
Ted and Samantha Baker actually
They ended up
did date.
dating during Breakfast Club, which I found very
Wow.
interesting. There was a fallout because, you know, first of all, with Anthony Michael Hall, John Hughes is like, okay, I'm going to put you in all these movies. And then it came around to Pretty in Pink. And he wanted Anthony Michael Hall for Ducky.
Oh, okay.
And Anthony Michael Hall's like, I don't know what he thought, but he might have thought, like, I don't want to do this again. Like, this is like too many in a row. I don't know what he thought.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, no, I want to go in like a little bit of a different direction. And their relationship was like, Hughes was very offended by that. And he did not like say, no, that's cool. So he was very, very mad about that. And the same thing, you guys, with Molly Ringwald, when Some Kind of Wonderful came around, she's like, I don't want to be another, she didn't want to be in Some Kind of Wonderful. And that really hurt the relationship with John Hughes. Do you think he was being reasonable, Rob?
Well, shucks, I mean, who knows what the dynamics are between these people, right? And to me, I think some of these situations in film, when they're putting a film together, the financing can fall apart so easily, right? So if he's pitching the movie and he's like, well, it's going to be Molly Ringwald and Anthony Michael Hall again, and a bunch of producers or whatever studio he had to deal with, they're like, oh, okay, great. And then Anthony Michael Hall drops out. Well, that can set in motion.
Makes them look bad, yeah.
Yeah, but it can also set in motion a whole chain of events, right? Like maybe someone else drops out, maybe one of the financiers doesn't believe in the movie
No, but
without
I don't think
him.
he dropped out. He didn't drop out. He never agreed to it. And the
No.
same thing with the other one.
No, but what I'm saying is it's not like a signed deal. It's like, it takes years, right, to put a movie together. So you have like 20 million conversations.
He had him in mind.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know. I mean, I guess I can't say because I wasn't there. I will say that I get why Molly Ringwald didn't want to do Some Kind of Wonderful, because that movie is such a retread of Pretty in Pink, right? Now, I loved both movies, and I'm not saying that the people that were in it, I mean, Leah Thompson is amazing, and Mary Stuart Masterson was great in it. I remember I wanted her hair so bad when I was that age.
It looks really cool.
Right? That little blonde. And I just thought she was so, she's a drummer, and she's so like with her
she
little...
had the red fringed gloves. And
right?
very cool.
And her little jean shorts and stuff. Like I was like, oh, I didn't want to be Leah Thompson. I wanted to be her. But nonetheless, like if you're Molly Ringwald and you're starting to become an adult and you want to take on adult roles and you want to do some, I guess I could kind of understand that, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe she promised it to do it, and
I just think it's her prerogative to not want to be do it again. And the same thing with Mike, Anthony Michael Hall. I feel like they hurt his feelings, and we're all human and we're flawed. And most I think artists and writers are a little eccentric, and that's the beauty what makes them different. They're not like other people,
Well,
you
speaking for
know?
us as writers, I can say we are batshit crazy. So,
Yeah, we're batshit crazy, but I just think that he was hurt, and I think that's very human, and that's okay, you know?
yeah,
But
yeah.
and I think they really loved him, and I think things ended up the way they should have. And oh, another interesting. Have you ever heard of who was almost going to be Jake Ryan?
No, do tell.
Viggo Mortensen tried out
What?
for Jake Ryan, and Molly Ringwald said her knees almost collapsed because she had to kiss him. And she
Wow.
was like, "Whoa, yeah." If it was up to her, she would have chosen him because he was like he kissed her, and she said she almost like passed out.
Hold up. Okay, so I am immediately looking up teenaged
I
Viggo
know. I want to. I
Mortensen
know.
because
I want to see that
we all
too.
know he's a
Older
handsome
gentleman.
man. Yeah, but like let's oh
What did
yeah. Oh
I want
yeah.
to see? I gotta look it
His
up
yearbook
myself.
photo. Hello. Wow.
Really?
Handsome
Okay.
man.
I gotta look it up.
Although honestly, in 1980, when was that filmed? 84?
I think 83. Well, it came out in
Okay.
maybe 83, and maybe the casting was 82.
83. So he would have been like 25.
Yeah. Well, Jake Ryan was 26, so
Yeah. Oh, he was? Oh, that's kind of
or
crazy.
23. I'm sorry,
Okay,
23.
that's a little weird because you have a 15-year-old actress being asked to kiss a,
That's pretty standard,
20-something-year-old
no?
guy.
That's standard
I
to
don't know.
me.
If I
What about
were
Kirsten Dunst in Interview with a Vampire? She was like 7 making out with somebody.
yeah, I know.
Well, that's even worse.
I don't think that's okay. I just don't.
It's really not. It's really
No.
not. But 15, it's like, I mean, what about Little House on the Prairie? There was a 10-year difference in that too. Okay, 16 Candles 84. It came out in 84.
Okay, so it was shot probably 83ish. Although you said it was shot before The Breakfast Club?
It was, and then they ended up because it was more commercial. They're like, let's try this out first.
Okay.
And then in 85, they released both Weird Science and The Breakfast Club.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's talk about weird science.
Okay.
Weird science.
Well, we talked about Chet in our Bad Boys episode. So, we did
Shit.
talk about it a little bit.
Great. Yeah, you guys. If you go to the '80s Bad Boys episode, we cover Chet in some detail when he turns into the globby monster, and even before. Yeah, his whole. How would you like a nice, greasy sausage served in a dirty ashtray?
It was like It was
Oh
pork
yeah, it's
sandwich,
like a
I think.
pork sandwich.
Oh yeah, he was so funny. People say I think Robert Downey Jr. has said that he remembers trying out for that movie. He was Ian, one of the bad guys,
Right.
and he remembers looking at Anthony Michael Hall, and Anthony Michael Hall was like playing with John Hughes' stereo, like all comfortable in his office, like, and he's like, oh, he's really tight with John Hughes. And apparently Anthony was like, oh, I'll tell him to give you the part. Like he was super tight with him by that time. They were super close, which made it very awkward, I think, when he turned down doing another movie with
Wow.
him. He was that close. Oh, I'll tell him. Or maybe
Well,
he's
maybe
showing off.
there's yeah.
We
I
don't
mean,
know. We don't know.
that's
But
who
weird
knows?
science, as far as John Hughes, I think there's a lot more magical realism in it. A lot of things that were not not normal.
Well,
But it was fun. It was like Frankenstein, like a female Frankenstein, right?
yeah. But the neat little twist that I loved about Weird Science is you have this kind of misogynistic thing going on, right? These two
Huh?
two guys who are you forgot to hook up the doll. Like they're going to create Kelly LeBrock, right? This beautiful playmate type magazine model and bring her to life. Well, when she steps out of the bathroom, though, after she like magically,
Right.
germinates, she's smart and she's the one that's mentoring them. Like she's no bimbo. I mean,
Yeah.
she's got it together. And I loved that they didn't make her some kind of a dumb bimbo that these guys dragged around. Like instead, that's what I thought made the movie work so well was that
Mm.
she kind of comes out and she's like, "Oh, really? Like, you want to create a woman? Well, this is
What
what a
would you
woman
little
is like.
maniacs like to do first? Yeah, she was
Exactly.
like,
That sums up the whole
yeah,
movie.
that's
Yeah,
a great point, Rob. That's a great point that they didn't make it. If this was Porky's or one of those, that would have been so
exactly. Yeah.
gone very awry.
And she helps them develop their self-esteem. She teaches them how to deal with Robert Downey Jr. and like they played real bullies. Who was the other bully?
It was Max and Ian. I forgot who played Max, but they poured like ices on Gary and Wyatt at the mall on their
Right.
head. They just always humiliated them.
Yeah, okay, I'm
And
looking
then
up.
she conjured up a Porsche 928 for Gary, all this stuff.
Okay, Robert Russler. He was,
Yeah,
yeah, and you
so,
guys, if you Google Robert Russler, you've seen him in a million things. So,
right.
yeah, a totally recognizable guy. Yeah, and she sort of helps them, lets them kind of make their own mistakes, but also, sort of, she's always watching over them and stuff. So I always loved that movie because on the surface, it seems like something that is not healthy for a girl to watch, but, you you watch it and you're like,
Well, I felt
wow,
more
I want to be
empowered
her.
after watching it. I felt more empowered.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
she was one of my idols as far as the outfits and the tight clothes. I thought I'm going to wear those outfits and have my hair all sticking out like that. I thought she was very powerful,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I loved
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Like you you don't identify when you're a teenage girl watching that movie, you don't identify with the teenage girls in the movie. You identify with her and
I was like, oh, I could be her. I could
yeah.
have boys scared of me, and I loved that.
Yeah, yeah, that was a cool movie and so funny. I mean, just so many quotable scenes and the whole Chet thing and and the dynamics with the parents and all that stuff. I mean, I I think it had a totally different tone and maybe wasn't so earnest like a Pretty in Pink. That one had a much darker, a little more serious thing
I
going on.
didn't
So
really
did Breakfast
like
Club.
Pretty in Pink. I didn't really like it that much.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break that down because I Pretty in Pink is a movie where if it's a rainy day and I'm flipping around and it's on, I'll watch it. Um,
Okay.
I don't really. It's not a movie that I'll seek out though. But I'm curious.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the original ending?
No, but everybody talks about it, and I think
Right.
we've talked about it.
It's on a DVD
Whoa.
of it's like one of the DVD special features. So you can get the DVD and watch the original ending. And and yeah, everybody knows the story. Like she was supposed to end up with Ducky, but the test audiences were like, no, she should end up with Blaine. So then they went back, stuck a wig on Andrew McCarthy, and reshot that scene.
And was
it's
it because he cut his hair for another movie?
yeah, yeah. He
Okay,
he had
okay.
already like changed his hair and stuff. So when you watch the eventual cut, like the cut that everybody knows now, it's really interesting because you can sort of see, they have like wide shots of the prom room, and then all of a sudden there's like a close up, and you can sort of see where they had to like stick in the different ones, and you can kind of tell like, oh, okay, they didn't do a wide shot here, or they didn't show that because they couldn't recreate the whole scene, right? But
I never thought of that.
I remember once going to the Biltmore in L.A.
Uh-huh.
and all I wanted to do was go in the basement and go to that room where they shot that scene.
I will say I didn't care for the movie. It made me like feel, I don't know if it was too melancholy, but If You Leave by OMD,
Yeah.
best song for that scene was
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, just an iconic marriage, right, of the scene.
Really
and,
good.
And the song goes on for like 8 minutes. And it's
That
just like
really
the
got me
one
right
song
in
they
the
played at the
gut.
prom.
And you know what? I will say the soundtrack was really good. And I think the kids helped John Hughes or whoever was in charge, like, hey, please put in Psychedelic Furs and New Order and Echo and the Bunnymen. I think kids kind of, the Smiths was on there. And I think the soundtrack was really good for that year. It was like, it came out in, I think, January 86. And I know the soundtrack was really good.
Yeah,
It was the perfect soundtrack.
I'm looking up. Okay, so because that's a real signature, I think, of John Hughes movies. They always had very effective music and
Yes.
interesting music. Like, it wasn't like they went, we need a pop song and throw something in. Like, the music was always really deliberately chosen, or in some cases specially written, and the music was almost another character.
It was really good. It was really good.
Yeah, like I'm looking up. Okay, so there was a guy named Tarkan Gotch, who was John Hughes' music supervisor, and he worked on Some Kind of Wonderful, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She's Having a Baby is a great soundtrack too, and
Really?
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Which Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, a lot of people forget when they're talking about John Hughes about that one. Another quotable, hilarious movie with John Candy and Steve Martin. And
Lots of John Candy, and also of course, we got to throw in at some point in this all the Home Alone movies, but that kind of went into the 90s. But that was his biggest success commercially. But
yes.
I like these old ones.
Yeah, and Home Alone, again, another quotable, right? Like, what does he say? Merry Christmas, you filthy animal, or something like that.
Yeah, just major. Well, people also, I know, I don't know if he directed, I don't think he directed it, but he did write Home Alone.
Yeah, he didn't.
And of course a whole bunch more. But I think that it became one of those Wizard of Oz things where families watch Home Alone every Christmas now. Like, it just became this fun thing.
Yeah, and I watch it because I loved the house.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Home Alone was directed by Chris Columbus, who's a really big director. He also directed. Where's his? I'm like Googling. I'm totally cheating on our prep here, but he directed Stepmom with Julia Roberts and a bunch of other like huge. You guys can Google him. Chris Columbus. So yeah, Home Alone, but the house in it, so iconic,
he
right?
He directed Harry Potter.
Oh, thank you.
I
knew there was some huge movie I was forgetting. Thank you. So, but back to the soundtracks. So, like if you even go back to Vacation, where Hughes wrote that movie and the Lampoon, Harold Ramis directed it.
Yes.
And Harold Ramis also, who also directed Caddyshack, he had an incredible ear too. And we can look up who his music supervisors were. Because you guys know the music supervisor on a film, that's the person who goes out and gets the clearances and, and when the director says, well, I like this song and they can't get a clearance, then the music supervisor has to go and find a song like it or something that works.
Gosh.
So that's their role in it. And a lot of them get the credit for certain songs, like when you think, God, this is the perfect song for that movie. It's a lot of times it's the music supervisor, but I think of that song Holiday Road, the Lindsey Buckingham, right?
It was great.
I mean, how iconic did that song become and identified with Vacation? And then
funny.
Like Pretty in Pink, with the psychedelic furs, I can't even look at the film poster without hearing the psychedelic furs song in my head, and the way he used, I remember in watching Pretty in Pink in the theater and hearing a little snippet of that New Order song, Shell Shock, and just going, oh my God, I love that song. I have to have it. So I always discovered bands through John Hughes movies too, because I just thought they had such interesting music, and even Some Kind of Wonderful.
Oh, true.
There was a cover of Can't Help Falling in Love on that soundtrack by a band called Lick the Tins.
Oh my goodness.
And it is it is such a great little cover. It sounds like Celtic music almost. You know, it's like a kind of a Celtic folk take on Can't Help Falling in Love. But I absolutely loved it. I think that was one of the things that saved that movie for me,
Really?
because I wasn't crazy about Some Kind of Wonderful in the same way either. What about you?
Yeah.
Did you get? Isn't it sort of the same?
I felt uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable. I liked like, oh, she's wearing some white fringe boots and a little like denim miniskirt. Okay, I want to wear that. You know, stuff like that was all I really like. And I know that the song, I think there was a Rolling Stone song called Miss Amanda Jones. You know, Amanda Jones is Leah Thompson.
Right.
And then the March Violets covered Miss Amanda Jones on that soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some other name. You guys are going to kill me because you guys probably all know. But there was another Rolling Stones reference in there, one of the character names, which maybe you can look that up. But there was Easter eggs in the character names on Some Kind of Wonderful. And we've talked about Craig Sheffer as a very effective bully.
Right.
On
Shout
that,
out Craig
and I love
Sheffer.
him. I liked Eric Stoltz. I thought, wow, he really doesn't care what other people think about him. That's what struck me about it. But I really felt more comfortable with the older John Hughes, where they didn't try to utilize every second of the movie. It wasn't so tightly edited, where it's all building up to this plot. You know, it was more like a day in the life, a slice of life. You know, spending the time to let that old lady, her shoes creak. Like, people don't do that anymore in film,
Right.
you know, or maybe they do. But I love that it wasn't, it just showed the day. It showed the day.
Yeah.
Every single thing that happened. And it was lovely. It was just very well done. And all of the heartbreaks and just the disappointments. And you could just feel by the look on, you know, the actress he chose, Molly Ringwald, the looks on her face. You're like, oh, yeah, I know exactly how this chick feels.
Yeah.
So I just thought he did a great job. And it is said by his sons, who are still with us today. Well, John Hughes unfortunately passed in 2009. He was in New York City. He was just, I think he was visiting his grandson. And he always had these little notebooks with him, little moleskin notebooks. And he just kind of always wrote even just conversations he would overhear or his surroundings. And he always had little notebooks on him filled with tiny writing. And he left behind quite a bit of them. But that day in 2009, he was going out outside of his hotel and he went and looked around and everything. And he had one of those little notebooks. And I just think it's lovely that he really looked around him and listened to people talking. And you wonder, a lot of these funny conversations we hear in these movies, was it something he overheard at the airport or at a restaurant?
Yeah.
Because they do feel very real.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great observation. The dialogue, and maybe that was my problem with Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful.
Didn't feel like that.
Yeah, it felt like he sat down and just banged out a script and was kind of writing something commercial or I don't know. But the dialogue wasn't real, and there weren't those. They weren't comedies, you know, they weren't the comedic structure or the tone of 16 Candles, right? But I don't know, there was a morality play going on or something that seemed a little heavy-handed to me in them. And
I agree.
I actually so this is kind of interesting. So Pretty in Pink came out and Pretty in Pink was successful, even though you know, people in the whole genre, they don't rank it as high in the whole John Hughes catalog.
People were happy to see their favorite actors and actresses again. They were happy to experience John Hughes again, whatever it was going to be.
Yeah, and the whole Brat Pack wave was high at that point, and you know, and Andrew McCarthy was dreamy, and you know, all this stuff.
Sure.
So that movie became a big hit, and when that movie took off, suddenly Hughes, like, he had already had, you know, I mean, I'm kind of getting a picture that this guy has fallouts with a lot of people because Hughes was really unhappy with the ending of Pretty in Pink and how Howard Deutsch, who or Dutch, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Howard Dutch directed Pretty in Pink, and John Hughes was always like, you know what? I don't like that we bowed and that she ends up with Blaine. So he had a falling out with Dutch. Well, Dutch was supposed to direct Some Kind of Wonderful. So when they had a falling out and Pretty in Pink was so, I'm sorry, not Dutch. Martha Coolidge was supposed to direct Some Kind of Wonderful. And then, as you said, Aim, Hughes wanted Molly Ringwald to play the role that Mary Stuart Masterson played, the punky girl. And so when Pretty in Pink became such a hit, Hughes went and fired the original cast members. Now check this out. Kim Delaney was supposed to be the Leah Thompson character, Amanda Jones.
Interesting. Okay.
Kim Delaney. And Kyle MacLachlan was supposed to be the Eric Stoltz character. And I don't know about you, but I always find it fascinating when you find out like some, what other actors didn't get the role or didn't take the role. Yeah. Right? Because you reimagine the whole movie and you're just like, wow. So, but after that, John Hughes just kind of, dumped out the whole Some Kind of Wonderful and shook it. And he wanted Michael J. Fox in the Eric Stoltz role.
Did he really?
But then Michael Fox turned it down, which of course is a switcheroo of the famous story about Back to the Future, where Eric Stoltz had the original part and then got fired, and then Michael J. Fox got hired.
That's right. This is so twisty and turny.
I love all this minutia. Like, I don't know why, but I do.
I do too. And one that I keep forgetting about, you guys. I think my favorite. We have to put this in my favorites.
Okay.
I'm going to put this in my favorites. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Everybody, forgive me.
Right?
How lovely and fun. It is said that 16 Candles is like a teenager's worst day ever, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a teenager's best day ever.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's
so cute.
That's great.
So cute. Well, we did talk about the parade, but that's got to be one of my favorites. And you know what was funny about it is that they say that a lot of these characters are just different parts of John Hughes's life that he wrote these characters about, and I always thought he would be like, okay, I was Cameron. The dorky friend, he talks a lot about the third wheel. And it turns out that John Hughes was the Ferris Bueller. He always had the girlfriend. And so there was always the third wheel in the car. And that's funny because I always thought he would have been like some dork, but he had like his wife he met in high school. She was a cheerleader. So they were actually like popular kids in wherever they were. But
wow. That's interesting.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, because you would think from all, from the sensitivity, like in Breakfast Club, he writes with so much sensitivity about all these misfits. That's interesting. I never knew that. I always thought that John Hughes was, the Cameron Crowe character.
Me too.
Or that was his voice in the movie anyway. And speaking of cars, me and my cars. So, the 1961 Ferrari Spider that was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So there were only like 100 some of those made. And it was one of the most rare Ferraris ever. So when you see the car driving around town, when you see the when the garage guys take
so
it
funny.
And they go like soaring in the sky and it's the
Love
soundtrack
that.
of Star Wars. It's like all slow-mo and they're like, yay!
So great.
Yeah. So that is actually an MG with a fiberglass body of the 61 Ferrari Spider. And because they couldn't, first of all, they didn't have more than one. They had one. And if they did all these stunts with it and it got banged up, it was all, forget it. It was all over. And then the famous scene in the end where Cameron gets all mad and he kicks it, because they've got it up on blocks and they're trying to unroll the mileage.
Odometer, yeah.
Right. So he pushes it. And when they shot that car going out the window, that was one of the fiberglass MGs, and you can totally see when it hits the ground, like you can see the fiberglass, like it doesn't crumple like metal would or smash up. It kind of breaks up like a fiberglass body would. And they did a similar thing in Magnum PI, where Magnum drove that Ferrari, but they had like a fiberglass body over a Corvette, I think it was. And I'm pretty sure they did the same thing in Miami Vice. But anyway, so yeah, and the license plate on that car said Nervous, like NRVOUS, right? And that was, supposed to be a nod to like, Cameron's neurotic father and how, like when he's talking about the car, it is his life.
I thought maybe he was a psychiatrist or a nerve doctor. I thought his occupation. But yeah, that is great. I did not know that. And also, apparently there was a guy on John Hughes' street who inspired him for the actual character of Ferris Bueller. There was some guy on the street who acted like that, and he had a best friend named Bueller. And he was always in trouble at school, and was always truant. And
I love it. Now, where is that guy today? I want to know where the real Ferris Bueller is today.
His name was Edward McNally.
Edward McNally. Where are you, Edward McNally?
Edward.
Where are you today?
And the casting, as far as Matthew Broderick, John Hughes had him in mind when he wrote it. And he I think Matthew Broderick might have been on Broadway or just kind of a very experienced young actor.
Yeah, didn't he do War Games before Ferris Bueller?
Oh, he did War Games. And he said John Hughes was like, I need like a Jimmy Stewart kind of guy, and he just thought like, I got to have that Matthew Broderick.
Oh, I love it. That's funny. He was now talk about when we were just going over 16 Candles and all those little moments, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is full of that stuff. Like
so funny.
Just incidental, like two that come to mind. Okay. When Jennifer, oh my God, I just blanked on her name. Jennifer Grey. Oh, thank you. Oh my God. Sorry, Jennifer Grey, like superstar. But I blank on stuff all the time. So Jennifer Grey meets Charlie Sheen in the police waiting room. Now, okay, there's just a quick sidebar there. That was a whole plot point. There actually was a thing going on with Charlie Sheen, and he had a much bigger role in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But they had, the thing was too long and, and whatever. So they ended up cutting out his whole part. But they left in that little gem where, she has the interaction with him, which is just so funny. But I love when she's going down the stairs and she's leaving and she like trips on the stairs and then turns and looks at him. And then the mother's like, Jeannie, that little moment. And
it's adorable.
And then you hear the music going, Jeannie in the background. Like, it is such a funny moment.
I adore it.
Yeah, me too. And then when they have Principal Rooney and he's like at the end, he gets on the bus. And he just sits on the bus and the kids are all just looking at him, and he's a mess. But like that movie's chock full of all these little like hilarious reaction shots and stuff like that. And the scene, I love that scene where they're in the art gallery and the
really
Smiths,
cool.
Please, please, please let me get what I want is playing. And they're looking at the paintings. Like, I don't even know what they're talking about, but I got it.
It was just lovely. It really was. It was cool.
Right? Like, I was like, I totally know what they're saying. Even though I don't know what they're saying, I know what they're saying. Like, who hasn't felt that way at some point,
spoke
right?
to you.
Yeah, like you're looking at art and, you just fall into it and suddenly you see all these things, or I don't know. I think that is one of the greatest moments in movies that just tells a million stories with no dialogue. I just love that moment.
Well, it's interesting. John Hughes really loved that was the Art Institute of Chicago. Mm-hmm. He said that place was a refuge for him, and he went there quite a bit. He knew all the paintings, he knew the building, and it was kind of a self-indulgent scene of his, he said, because he was kind of in that movie shooting a love letter to Chicago in general. Mm-hmm. And he was showing all the places, including the modernist home of Cameron. and the Chicago River he showed, and just the Von Steuben Day Parade and downtown Chicago. These are all places that he just really loved. That house, um, Ferris Bueller's house, was actually shot in Long Beach in California. But the house, Cameron's house, is called the Ben Rose House, and it's in Highland Park. And it's just a really beautiful architectural house. And the whole movie was just parts of Chicago that Hughes loved. And I just thought that was so neat. And Woody Allen always filmed around New York, and that was his thing. And John Hughes really, really loved Chicago. And I don't know about you, but I would not have known anything about it at that age had I not seen these films.
Yeah, another good observation too. He used the sets. Whenever he shot something in Chicago, Chicago was a character in the movie. Like, I think that's kind of what Some Kind of Wonderful and Pretty in Pink were missing, is especially Pretty in Pink. They shot that all over LA, but LA wasn't a character in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could have kind of been anywhere, right?
I couldn't tell where it was.
Yeah. And I got to look up Some Kind of Wonderful, because I feel like wasn't that set in LA too, but it wasn't really a character.
Films were in a fictional city that John Hughes created called Shermer, Illinois. I know Breakfast Club was, but a lot of them were just suburban Chicago and kind of in every city.
But didn't they I don't think Pretty in Pink was supposed to, or well, I could be wrong because I don't really remember. But I'm trying to find what town that was supposed to be in.
Oh yes, so apparently A Pretty in Pink was made around Los Angeles, but it looks like in the movie it's a Chicago suburb.
Oh, okay. Which is kind of funny. Once again, maybe that's where things kind of went, I don't want to say wrong. I mean, what am I going to make a movie? Like who the hell am I? But
you can pick up on that it's not Chicago, maybe? I mean,
yeah, I certainly did. And maybe that's part of what was missing, is it's like, okay, if this is supposed to be a suburb of Chicago, how come Chicago's not a character in the movie like it's always been? Why is it like these vague, shots of stuff by the railroad in the valley,
Well, and you're correct about Some Kind of Wonderful. According to me, just Googling real quick, it just says that that's the only John Hughes teen film that fully embraces Los Angeles as its background.
Yeah, which, again,
Los Angeles is kind of depressing, though. Same with Less Than Zero. It's like a little bit sad sometimes.
Yeah, but like, okay, Less Than Zero is a good example. So LA is kind of a character in Less Than Zero, right?
Very much so,
right?
Yeah.
And even the way that Chicago became in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or the way that the house was a character in Home Alone, and a lot of these movies where, and again, some John Hughes wrote or directed, or like it's not that he directed all these movies, and who knows where he was in the decision making process, but I feel like that was kind of what I was missing in those two movies. Was it just felt like they could be anywhere, and I felt like it was a little more of like a TV feel, where every European city looked like
slick.
the Valley, and like
it's
in MASH,
slick.
yeah, or in MASH where Korea looked like the Santa Monica Mountains, or it just felt like, I don't know, I was missing the identity or the framework, I guess, of where it was. And I feel like that kind of influenced, the truth of the story too. Like,
that's a great point.
Right? Like Ferris Bueller, I mean, you feel like these people existed.
Well, they're at Wrigley Field, they are at these places, and you're like, okay, they're in Chicago. And you know what? Some movies, they don't want to show the background, and that's fine. But I feel the same way. Something didn't feel right. It didn't land for me.
Thank you. That's the feeling. It didn't land. Yeah. And maybe, you know what, you guys, Because AIM, we are so out of time. Like,
Girl.
I know,
Well,
right?
I had a great time talking about John Hughes,
I know. You know a
and
lot about John Hughes, by the way.
it's just I'm glad we ever got to see his work, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah, I agree. I think his contribution, I know for myself and many of my Gen X friends, oh, my cat's meowing. Many of my Gen X friends, it really helped us. It was a great feeling to have art in the world reflecting how we felt, which is not something I think exists today in a positive way. I think there is a lot of art out there now that reflects horrible stuff and negative stuff, but there's nothing that's giving young people hope right now. And I feel like the voice of John Hughes and his sort of artistic voice, I guess, is sorely missed right now.
I agree. And you know what? I'm going to disagree because I feel like there probably are some things keeping kids afloat that we just don't know about. I want to just give space for that. There could be something out there. I have not looked into it. And I'm sure there are artists creating things that are helping kids. Nothing that I see that's mainstream, though. I will say that.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. It's like,
yeah.
John Hughes was a mainstream success, and
Right.
whether you were a deep kid or whether you were a kid just going to the mall and you didn't care what you saw or whatever, like my mother knows who John Hughes is. My dad, he was
and he also they weren't so slick. The girls weren't like, it wasn't like Grease where like you had a blonde ponytail with a ribbon and you were a cheerleader, or you were the exact opposite. You were a greaser. It gave you more categories to belong to, more subcategories.
Yeah, the characters were three-dimensional instead of two.
You could see yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And I think that in the movies now are very, very, at least when I'm scrolling looking for something new, I just don't find any thoughtful teenage comedies like I used to. And it's interesting. I mean, it's probably a whole nother conversation, and I know it's dependent a lot on industry factors and this, that, and the other thing.
Sure.
But I don't see the positive voice. So, I don't know. To me, I think it's something we need. But I'm a person that seeks that stuff out. I see. Boy, my cat is really meow. I think he disagrees with me.
He's like, you know what? You don't know what you're talking about. There's
right?
tons of things out there.
Kilroy,
you're not on the right platform.
What are you doing, Kilroy? Kilroy, tell me what's out there now that's positive for teenagers and doesn't reinforce their horrible feelings, but gives them, identifies with it, helps them recognize it, and empathizes, and then gives them hope. That's what I'm looking for. I think
they have their own followers, and I think the platforms are completely different, and I think they don't look to modern film for this kind of thing. I think they have their own world that you and I are just not on these platforms.
Yeah, I think
that's what I think.
Yeah, that's a really good point too.
I mean,
I don't know from Snapchat or
I don't either.
TikTok or I mean, I think it's a miracle that you and I are on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. Like to me, that's a huge lift.
There's like 50 things we don't even know about. And there are people that are, kids follow people that speak to them. It could be one person on some platform that you and I have no idea what it is. So, one day we'll find out about it if we're lucky.
Yeah. Hey, and you guys listening, if you know of something or whatever, please, we love your messages, especially you guys in Europe. We have so many listeners in Germany and France. Like,
that's amazing.
I just want to say bonjour. And how do you say hello in German?
Tschüss.
Tschüss?
No, I think that was tschüss was like hello and goodbye. That's a slang. I don't know. What the...
Wait, let's see. Let's look it up. Okay, German.
Auf Wiedersehen is
Hallo.
Goodbye.
Hallo.
All right.
Hallo. So, hello, Germany, and bonjour, France. Like, we just love that you guys tune in. We love all you guys. So, anyway, hit us up on Twitter, Glitter Bee Girls, or Instagram, Glitter Bee Girls. And we have a website, glitterboomgirls.com. There's some fun stuff on there. And you can, message us. We read every single DM. We will even write you back. Okay, I'm just saying. Right. So, Aim, why don't you close this out and give us your final thoughts on the great John Hughes?
Well, I'd like to say tschüss, everybody, because that means bye-bye, not hello. Tschüss to everyone, especially you German folks. I'd like to say thank you so much for listening, everybody. Let us know what your favorite John Hughes movies are. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about on our next episode. And have a wonderful rest of your week.
See ya.